senators. Brian Hughes, of course, does a fabulous job for his district, one of the leading conservatives in the state, and we've had a great session. I want to talk about a couple of issues. Some people don't understand what happens when we say we're cutting your property tax. Some people, what we're really doing is sending a check to the schools from the state so that you don't have to pay the schools. So if you're a senior over the age of 65, so that you don't we've increased our homestead exemption for you to $200,000. That means for the average senior in Texas to $200,000. Brian's district, they will no longer have to pay school property taxes for the rest of their lives. And if you're under 65, the homestead exemption is increasing from $100,000, which we increased it to last session, to $140,000, meaning your school taxes will be down about 50% from where they were just several years ago. We've always led on the homestead exemption in the Senate. We've always had a 31-0 vote on the homestead exemption. When we came into office in 2015, the homestead exemption was only $15,000. Then we moved it to 25 to 40 to 100, and now this big increase this year. So we're replacing the money you would normally pay to the school districts. So we're writing that check for you on your behalf. Then on top of that, we increased school funding by $8.5 billion in a new way, Brian, as you know, that both parties actually agreed on, was to refocus how we send money to school districts. We have near 1,200 school districts in the state. What we used to do is send one check, basically, the superintendent spent it however he or she wanted to do it. And many of them did a great job, but not everyone directed it the way maybe the legislature thought they should. So this year, working with the House and the Senate, again, I think near unanimous support, we focused on teachers first. So if you're a school teacher, back in 2017, the average school teacher was making $54,000. After this bill, the average school teacher in Texas will make $69,000. In rural Texas, we gave rural teachers an even bigger pay increase because there had been a gap between urban, suburban, and rural teachers. Because the most important person in your child's education, besides you, the parent or grandparent, is the school teacher. So half of that $8.5 billion, roughly, going to school teachers. Then we created a bucket for children with special needs. Those students, we put about $1 billion into that program. Then we made a bucket for school security, put more money into that as we've been doing the last few sessions. And we even created a bucket for the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers and the maintenance workers and infrastructure projects for the schools, in addition to their normal funding. So the school districts are getting more money than ever. The teachers are going to get half of it, so their pay increases. And then we put $1 billion into school choice. School Choice, the biggest program launch ever in the history of the world, $1 billion and 100,000 students beginning to apply sometime around this time next year, maybe a little sooner in the spring, as soon as the program gets up and running for the next school year. And then, Brian, I know something close to your heart. Let's talk about Senate Bill 10 and Senate Bill 11. We're putting the 10 Commandments and prayer back in public school. Why don't you make a comment on that?
Yes, sir. It makes sense. The 10 Commandments are recognized, whether you're a Bible person or not. The 10 Commandments are the basis of Western civilization and law and morals. The Supreme Court decades ago forced those out of the classroom. They should be back. And, of course, the Bible, it's obviously God's Word, but even if you don't believe that, it's culture, it's history, it's beautiful literature. It belongs as part of a well-rounded educational system. So we're excited about that.
And prayer? We're giving private time to students so they can pray?
That's right. No student's ever going to be compelled to pray, but they should be allowed to. That's a First Amendment right given to us by our Creator and secured by the Constitution. So that right to pray in public schools is fundamental, and it's going to be protected.
And let me tell you how you can help if you're a church, if you're a business, if you're an individual. We're not putting an unfunded mandate on the schools to provide the 10 Commandments. Anyone can take, and you read the law to find out the specifics, but it's 16 by 20 inches, being easy to read. You can take it to the school, so you get it copied, you frame it, and take it to the school, and they are required by law to put it in their classrooms. I've always wondered, Brian, and we are both committed believers, but I've always wondered, when you take your kids to church and Sunday school on Sundays, and then you tell them they can't talk about God Monday through Friday, that's been a real disconnect, and so Texas brought that together. The other issue is THC impacting our schools. We just had a school in Prosper this past weekend. They sent 7 students to the hospital because someone was handing highly potent gummies out. 8,000 to 9,000 shops opened up in Texas over the last 3 years. And where do they target their stores? Most of them within 1,000 to 2,000 feet of a school. And they say, yeah, but we card the kids. We don't want them to buy it. Well, then why do they target the schools? And so these THC businesses have opened up. No one knows what's in the products. They created new synthetic cannabis products at very, very high doses, and it's caused great havoc in our state. The testimony, students paranoid, schizophrenia. One student ate some gummies in February in Houston and shot his mother 3 times. Another 22-year-old out of school walked in front of a train. Parents came with these just awful, awful stories about what's happening to their kids. Law enforcement all in, all over the state saying this has to be banned. Senate Bill 3, that's what we did on Senate Bill 3. Infrastructure, let's talk about that. Really important. We have to meet our grid needs because we continue to add people every day. We need more natural gas plants. Renewables are fine, wind and solar, but if the wind's not blowing and the sun's not out, we're in trouble. So we put $5 billion into strengthening the grid. That's $5 billion on top of the $5 billion we put in last session. We put in over $3 billion into water because that's going to be a scarcity if we don't address it, 3 and 4 decades from now. In some areas of the state, it's a scarcity today. And then we put more money into building roads than ever before since I became Lieutenant Governor 10 years ago. And we continue to focus on infrastructure. And then I'll open up to questions. We focus on law enforcement, securing the border. I said when President Trump was elected, we would secure the border in about a day, and we did. With the efforts of the state, that all the billions we poured into it, we're hoping Congress sends us that money back at some point. But we put all that money in to secure the border, but the Biden administration worked against us, not with us. So 15 million or more people came in here illegally. You're seeing the result of that. Some people came here for a better life, but we want them to come here legally, the right way. No one should have to come to America in the back of an 18-wheeler and suffocate, or be a child or a woman who is sex trafficked in order for the cartels to bring them across the border. That's not the way you want to come to America. And so the border is for all intents and purposes shut down. We've gone from thousands and thousands a day to dozens a day because we're working with the federal government. So a big session on big issues, the most conservative session we've ever had. I think you would agree, Brian?
That's right, Governor.
Anything else you want to add?
No, it's exciting. Focus on those things that matter to people, that affect their daily lives, and that's the government's job. And so the government works for the people. We're being responsive to what the people need, what they want, and we're encouraged about it.
And our budgets are always conservative, under the constitutional limit that we self-imposed on ourselves. The Senate passed a bill for a constitutional limit. We can't spend any more than inflation times population, and that's what we did. We held back about $4 billion in reserve on top of the $27 to $28 billion we have in the rainy day fund, which is more money than most states have combined. So our fiscal house is in order. Almost 20% of the budget, a little bit more than that, is sending back to you in the form of property tax cuts to replace the money you were sending to schools. And we've invested in our schools and our infrastructure and passed strong conservative legislation. Questions? Yes, sir.
I'm going to start with the THC
Sure.
ban, just because it was one of your top priorities.
Yes.
Became Senate Bill 3.
Yes.
And it's also been a bit polarizing amongst the public as well. What have your conversations been like with the governor surrounding this bill, and why has he not signed off on it being one of your top priorities yet?
Yes. He'll make that decision. He has a window. He has about 1,000 bills that he'll look at and study. And that's his decision. Our decision is passing legislation. I will tell you that in the Senate, that bill passed, I think, 27-4. There was no controversy. It passed not as strongly with Democrats in the House, but it passed overwhelmingly with Republicans and Democrats in the House. We have to take care of our young people in our schools, because these companies that came in and opened these shops, these are not small mom and pop businesses, by the way. This is an organized assault on the state of Texas by the cannabis industry in Colorado and California, Mexico, China, wherever, sending these products in to hook our kids on drugs. This is exactly what we're doing, and we've seen the ramifications of that in these terrible, terrible stories and this testimony we've had from police and from parents. So we're focused on that. For me, in my 17 years, 10 years Lieutenant Governor, 8 years as a senator, I don't think I've ever felt more strongly about anything, because it's destroying our schools and our young people. And the polling is strong. Republican polling is very strong on the issue, almost 2-to-1 now of banning it. They didn't know a lot about it early in session, and the more people learn about it, the more people say, we got to get this out of our schools. Any comment on that?
Look at how the products are marketed. Look at the labeling. Look at the names of the products, and there's no question they're targeting children. It's a real issue.
That's why they built them around schools. To put it into perspective, by the way, there are only 13,500 McDonald's in the entire United States, and there are 8,000 to 9,000 smoke shops just in Texas. There's only 1,100 McDonald's in Texas. So on an 8-to-1 difference, these smoke shops have all opened up, organized again, assault on Texas by drug dealers. As one police chief said, it's just a drug deal in public at these smoke shops. That's what's going on. Yes, sir.
I
Yes,
know
sir.
you mentioned that you feel that individuals should not be able to obtain substances with THC.
Right.
What would you say to those who feel it should be regulated rather than banned?
You can't regulate 8,000 and 9,000 shops. You don't have law enforcement to go in. And if you found a product, you got to test it to see how, if it's potent, if it's over the limits, and then they would just put another product on the shelf when you take it out. Secondly, our number one issue as elected officials is public safety. It is up to us to protect the public. And this is absolutely has the potential to destroy our entire generation of young people coming up. And the stories get worse every week. There was just a story from Europe on the same thing they're having in Europe, the high potency of THC. The headline of the story was, "This is not the pot you smoked at Woodstock." And we had testimony on that in your hearing,
That's right.
where the doctor said the THC levels now that these kids are getting a hold of, and adults, detrimental to their health because it's 5-6 times higher than anything before. Any other questions?
Let's say this bill is
Okay,
passed.
okay.
What impact do you feel it could have on the economy?
It's not going to have any negative impact on the economy. This is a business.
There are some owners here in Tyler who have expressed concern
Yeah.
that they could close down.
Yeah,
and
well,
send-
and you know what? And I have a real concern about the smoke shops in Tyler selling drugs, high potency drugs to our kids and destroying their lives. That's my answer to them. The cost, the healthcare cost involved in that will be significant. Not to mention those families that are being destroyed. They shouldn't have been in this business, and they are. And by the way, when I say it doesn't impact the economy, this is an industry that didn't even exist 4 years ago. It came out of nowhere. And I'm concerned about the health of the children, the teenagers, and the adults in our state to be hooked on drugs. They got in the wrong business. And they shouldn't have been in the business. That's where they are. Hey, thank you all very much. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes, sir.
How was it working with Speaker Burrows throughout the session?
You know what? For the first time since I've been lieutenant governor, I actually had a speaker I could work with and sit down and talk to and pass all of this great conservative legislation. We'd passed school choice 5 times out of the Senate. It never passed in the House, never even got a chance until 1 vote, and it was killed last time. Bail reform to keep felons behind bars, a bill we've been trying to pass for a long time. His help on focusing on teachers and our school funding, his help on passing the ban on THC, all of these issues, because we sat down, and would you say it's the best relationship? You were in the House and you were in the Senate.
sir.
Has it ever been better?
No, by far the best. By far the best.
Hey, thank you all very much.
want
I gotta run.
School vouchers,
yeah.
what's going on in LA. We don't have time for more questions, sir.
No, because I have to go to Abilene and El Paso before
We
long.
only got 2 questions.
Okay,
today,
I'll give you
Governor.
2 quick answers. You mentioned, real quick, you mentioned school vouchers.
Are we recording?
Yeah, it's going to be started. This is a program that the people of Texas have wanted. Parents deserve a choice. Look, most of our public schools are really good. Some are really great, some are really bad. No parent should be locked into a school for some reason and happens to be working with them. Maybe their child has a disability the school can't handle, or maybe their child just doesn't perform well in that school. Maybe it's a failing school. So that's a real easy one. It's not going to undermine public education. And the second question was on LA Ryan.
Yeah, the LA Ryan.
It's disgraceful what's happening out there. It's disgraceful. That's what happens when you have a blue state out of control and letting criminals take over the streets. Thank you all.
Special session. Any need for them?
That's up to the governor's take. Thank you all.
Is there any support? Any legislation?
All right, there. As you all can see, he is wrapping up that press conference. It was a pretty quick press conference. He addressed a lot of topics, took questions from press. One of the few things that he did address was the 8,000 to 9,000 THC shops that opened up within 1,000 to 2,000 feet from a school. He said that they are working to control that, as well as infrastructure. They have put $5 billion in strengthening the power grid. And here he's going to go ahead and cut that live. So I'll go ahead and take me full so you all don't have to look at that black screen. But there you go. There you have it. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick covered a lot of topics that I'm sure a lot of people were wanting to know more about. And I'm so glad that we were actually able to be there live to get that. And like I said, Isaac Ramirez will have that full story later today, starting at 4 o'clock. And then you'll be able to see it play out during our news on air broadcast. But yeah, he'll have more information that you all are probably looking to know a lot more about later this evening. But for now, I will send you all right back into your regularly scheduled